Okay. There's Nikki. Good morning, Nikki. Welcome.
Good morning. How are you?
We're well, thank you.
Good.
Sheila, are we pronouncing it right? Alohi? Alohi?
There we go. Okay. Just want to make sure I wasn't there.
Alohi.
Okay, that's cool.
Okay. Good morning, STrEaM families.
All right, we have our YouTube feed live.
Here we go.
I think it is. What happened to the YouTube feed? Oh, there we go.
Okay.
When you see me looking to my right, I forget to tell people it's because I have dual monitors like I do in my office at school to be able to manage everything. And I found with Zoom meetings, you really do need to have more than one monitor up if you're going to monitor Zooms and these types of sessions. So I'm not staring off down my hallway or at my cat, even though he should be making an appearance soon. I'm actually looking at my other monitor to pull things up. So that's what I'm doing right now. All right, Ms. Beyondich, do you think we're ready to get started?
I think we are. Good morning.
All right, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Coffee with STrEaM Academy. It is Thursday, May 14th, believe it or not. And tomorrow is the last Friday of the school year for us. Last full week of school is wrapping up. It's been quite a ride, very interesting time for us. We've had a lot of fun. We've got a really exciting morning coffee for you today. We have, again, two guests with us that we're really excited about. We've been able to bring in some really neat guests on morning coffee lately for the benefit of our parents. And so we're excited to tell you about that. And they are both with us now. We like to start all of our meetings with our mission statement: anchored STrEaM Academy empowers students to be involved learners, critical thinkers, engaged citizens who are inspired by the natural world. Welcome, 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 everyone. We have some staff on Zoom with us. We have some parents on Zoom with us. Good morning, parents. Congratulations, Sheila. I hope it's okay to share. She's one of our parents. She has a new baby girl named Alohi. So hopefully in about 11 years or so, we'll see her at STrEaM Academy with us for middle school. Congrats, that's really cool. I love babies. One of my big weaknesses is babies. I love babies. Makes me happy, makes me smile. So starting off the day with news of a new baby in the STrEaM family is pretty cool. So today's guests we're really excited to tell you about. We have two special guests with us. That it'll be just a pleasure to talk to. Those folks are Professor Gabel, who is a professor at UAA, and she's been doing some really cool things with us with health and fitness, partnering with us and with Mr. Mosen in our PE classes. And she's with us. She's going to talk a little bit about things she does and things she teaches. And we also have a special guest, state representative in our legislature, Ivy Spohnholz is with us today. And I see Ivy and Mrs. Spohnholz, sorry, and Professor Gabel are online. So good morning to both of you. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning.
Good morning. You are muted. Oh,
Okay, next week we have a different lineup for morning coffee. We have our regular Tuesday morning coffee. We've got some cool guests next Tuesday as well. Megan Gatlin, who's here with us right now, our project STrEaM coordinator, and Megan and Dr. STrEaM, who's a consultant we work with on project-based learning, they are presenting about project-based learning. Project-based learning is sort of the core educational philosophy, the driver of what we do at STrEaM Academy. Everything we do is kind of driven by projects and project-based. And they're going to do some work just helping parents to dig in a little more into PBL, as we call it. And that's really exciting. And then I have two guest principals coming on for our families and our STrEaM community. And they are the principals of the two charter schools in Anchorage School District that are homeschool programs. And that's Frontier Charter and Family Partnership. And so, one of the things we've worked on is to not get into, the mindset of we're competing with other charter schools and, instead the idea that the other charter schools, even the ones that serve the same grade levels and same families as us, are really partners. The school choice is super important. And so what we really want is our parents to be really well informed about the good choices, in addition to their neighborhood schools that are out there. We have a lot of families that are homeschool type families. We have a lot of families that have come to us and said, I've homeschooled my children and now I want, brick and mortar school, and you're our first choice. And so there's a natural, I think our school is sort of a natural bridge between homeschool on one end of the spectrum and maybe your neighborhood, school on the other end. So Principal Parker and Principal Finkler will be with us next week to talk about their programs. All right, I think we'll get started. And I know that a state legislator's time is valuable. So I'd like to start by introducing Ivy Spohnholz. Ivy is currently the chair of the House Labor and Commerce Committees, which oversees licensing of state workers, the Department of Labor and Revenue. And she's also the vice chair of the House Health and Social Services and Energy Committees. So representing us in Juneau, Ivy Spohnholz is really busy down there. And here in East Anchorage, we're well represented. Since joining the legislature, she's worked on healthcare reform, including healthcare price transparency and expanded access to care. And prior to joining the legislature, Ivy worked in the nonprofit sector for organizations including the Abused Women's Aid in Crisis, UAA, and Salvation Army. And a big part of the reason we invited Mrs. Spohnholz on today is because she does represent us, specifically us, East Anchorage. We're dedicated to East Anchorage. We're an East Anchorage charter school. We give neighborhood preference to our East Anchorage community kids. And she represents East Anchorage, including like Wonder Park, Russian Jack, Nunaka Valley, Reflection Lake, College Gate. So a lot of overlap with the STrEaM community. So welcome, Ivy Spohnholz. We're really glad to have you on today. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see your faces. To tell you, one of the biggest challenges of this sort of public health crisis for me personally as an individual is that I love people, and I don't get to interact with them. I'm sure, as educators, the educators here will appreciate that interaction you get with people is so key, and it's nice to see people's faces this morning. So the Principal Mukalki invited me to talk potentially about education, and I'll just say there are a lot of people that know a lot more about education than I do. What I know is that I know what I'm not an expert in, and I think that in light of kind of what my my expertise is, I thought I would talk a little bit about the legislature's response to COVID-19 and kind of where we are. I've been really, as chair of the Labor and Commerce Committee, my job is to sort of oversee businesses and the workforce in Alaska. And so I've been really concerned about making sure that, Alaskan small businesses and individual workers were going to be as close to harm-free as we possibly could come, knowing that there was going to be a lot of impact to people's ability to work because of our public health measures, the ability for small businesses to stay open. I'm so concerned about we made so much progress in diversifying our economy since the late 80s in my childhood that I wanted to make sure we could try to protect as many of those small businesses as possible. So a few of the different things that we have done to respond to COVID-19 is that all of a sudden we knew we were going to have to just basically shut down commerce in the state of Alaska very quickly, and that was going to create a huge shock to people's ability to earn a paycheck and function as a community. And so one of the first things that we did was we expanded unemployment. Historically, unemployment has been a pretty limited thing. You have to have been laid off and have been sort of in good stead with your former employer, and then be looking for a job actively. You could, and in COVID-19, you could have a great relationship with your employer, but there was going to be no jobs to be had. And so we really dramatically expanded eligibility for unemployment, which was really important during this time. And that's been key because we have over 80,000 Alaskans, or about 25% of our workforce, that as of last week was unemployed, which is staggering. In the worst recession we ever had, we never got higher than like 11% unemployment, and that was in the late 80s. We hit 11.2% in 1989 at the peak of our absolute worst recession, and in our most recent recession between 2015 and 2018, we only lost like 11,000 jobs. And we know a lot of those 80,000 jobs, people will be able to come back on board, but we don't know how many of those jobs will come back into being. And so we're pretty worried about that. Economists at the Institute of Social and Economic Research believe that, about half of those jobs will definitely come back. We don't know about the other half. And so, we need to be looking kind of at the next wave of response as well, to make sure we can help get Alaskans sort of trained and get access to capital and things like that. So one of the big things we're working on right now is, there's a bunch of money coming from the federal government as a part of the CARES Act that was passed at the end of March in Washington, D.C. And we're working to try to get that money out to communities and small business across the state of Alaska as quickly as possible. And the legislature met on Monday and sort of approved the rest of those funds to push out to small business relief and communities, funding about $1 billion worth of funding. And unfortunately, that the method that was used wasn't a legal appropriations method. And every time we appropriate funds in the legislature, it comes in the form of a bill. A lot of people don't know when we pass the budget, we talk about the budget. The budget's actually a bill like any other bill. It has an HB or an SB, House bill or Senate bill in front of it. It's a number. It has to pass through the entire legislature to become law, and that is actually required in our state constitution, that the legislature vote on an appropriations bill, and that didn't happen. There were some legislators that were concerned about going back to Juneau and therefore wanted to try to do a workaround where we approved it via the Legislative Budget and Audit Committee, but that's kind of just a small subset of the legislature. There's 10 of us that serve on that committee. I also serve on that committee. And as a result, there was a lawsuit that was filed yesterday, and an injunction is supposed to be filed today on those funds. And I think as, educators and parents, this is a great sort of example of, how you do what you do is just as important as what you do. And you kind of have to make sure that you do things right, or you're going to run into problems. And I know that, as a parent, I have now 3 young adult daughters, and, I always try to teach my daughters to make sure that they do things the right way. And the legislature, the legislature wanted to push money out quickly. And so, we're trying to find a creative way to work around. I think there was a few of us, myself included, that were worried that not doing it the right way was going to create some unintended consequences. And now we have a lawsuit, and there will be an injunction filed to prevent the distribution of those funds, which is really problematic, right? I mean, this is a big deal because small businesses are counting on those programs, worked hard to make sure those programs would include grants for businesses to sort of get money out to them as quickly as possible. And so now we're going into really what is a constitutional battle over how to get these funds out to communities, which is really a big problem. And we're right in the middle of it. And so I don't have a great answer for you about how it's going to work out and what we need to do. The simplest solution is that the legislature needs to go back to Juneau as quickly as possible to pass an appropriations bill to appropriate those funds so that we can get that money out to Alaskans as quickly as possible. In case people are wondering, I'll just go back to the unemployment issue just briefly. We are hearing that Alaskans are starting to get job offers. We know that our economy is starting to reopen again. You guys heard recently from Ann Zink, I think, the amazing Ann Zink, about what are the measures we would be looking at to reopen our economy, and we're starting to reopen our economy, which is really nice. It's good for Alaskans. Alaskans are getting jobs. Many Alaskans are getting jobs. A lot of Alaskans still don't have them. The unemployment office has been working really hard to try to process all of those claims. We're, as I said, we're at record high unemployment. The good news is that the unemployment office is more accessible now. People can call them in the afternoon. There are open lines. They've hired hundreds of people in the last 4 weeks. And so there's more access to people that need information and help. And also, there's another good thing that's important for folks to know, and that is that you can get a partial unemployment benefit. In the past, it was kind of all or nothing. You could get unemployment or you could work, and there was no choice in between. Now, with the passage of that unemployment bill that I introduced that I passed in March, it allows people to claim a partial benefit, which is important because a lot of unemployers are kind of only operating at partial capacity. My sister works for Kaladi Coffee, and they don't have every Kaladi Coffee in Anchorage open, and they're working to sort of slowly open and to do it safely. And many employees won't get as many hours as they're used to getting. So the good news is that if you've been on unemployment for now, you can continue to file unemployment, and you can go back to work in a part-time basis, and you'll be able to collect a partial benefit for unemployment. And I think that that's really important for Alaskans to know. So those are a couple of the things kind of that we've been working on right now to make sure that Alaskans are, the harm is sort of mitigated of our public health measures. I'm really happy to report that our case count continues to be very flat. We have totally flattened the curve, and Alaskans have done really great public health work. I'm really proud of us. I would, just encourage everybody to continue to try to think like Ann Zink and, use good physical distancing measures, wear a mask. We do have asymptomatic transmission. So try to wear a mask when you're in public, please. Wash your hands regularly. That's right. Think like Zink. Wash your hands regularly. As soon as you get home, wash your hands. try to keep distance from one another so we can continue as we're working on reopening our economy. We'll be able to continue to reopen our economy if we're able to hold the line on COVID-19 transmission. And I went out last night, my husband and I went out last night for a drive, and we went down to Girdwood, and we had to stop at the gas station in Girdwood to use the restroom. And I was the only person that I saw wearing a mask. And I thought, people are feeling a little cocky, a little comfortable, maybe a little stir crazy and excited. But I would say, please, try to continue to use some of those public health measures that Dr. Zink recommends. A lot of hand washing, keeping your space. Let's not go crazy. Let's just slowly open our economy and to the best that we can support one another and trying to keep as healthy as we can. I'm happy to take any questions people might have. I will answer questions about anything.
Thank you. Dr. Zink talked about how difficult it is to normalize wearing masks and how it's not something that in our society has been normal.
Yeah.
And so it's uncomfortable for people. And she sort of asked our help. So as educators, as schools, we're really trying to model that. And I know I have mine when I'm out in public everywhere I go. So hopefully we can start to change that and normalize masks a little bit, because it does for some reason just seem to be really hard for people to do. So thank you. That's really, really informative. And it sounds like you've been really busy despite, closures and quarantine and things being really, restricted in terms of face-to-face meetings and travel. It definitely sounds like you still have your hands full. What do you think the timeline is for the legislature to reconvene in Juneau and solve the CARE Act money issue?
Well, at this point, the regular legislative session ends next Wednesday, May 20th or 21st, 20th. I think it's May 20th, and that would be day 121 of the regular legislative session. So at this point, we're going to have to call ourselves into a special session. That happens one of two ways: either the governor calls us into special session, or 2/3 of the legislature agrees to call ourselves into special session. It's not very difficult to do it, but it takes a few days to get everybody to fly back to Juneau. One thing that we didn't do this year that I would like to see us do is to pass some legislation to make it easier in the case of an emergency to meet via distance. There was some reticence on the part of legislators to meet either telephonically or using video conference technology. I think that video conference technology, now everybody knows how easy it is to use. We understand it. We understand how to use it safely and securely. We understand the culture of it and the technology of it a lot better. And so I hope that opens us up to, folks being willing to explore, doing that for the legislature. But right now, the only legal way for us to meet is to go to Juneau. And so we probably would need about a week to get ourselves back to Juneau and do that work. But that certainly can be done. All of our staff is on site down to the Legislative Affairs Agency staff, and the Capitol is ready for us at any point in time.
Thank you. We're always going to be, my mind's always going to come back to school. And so I think a lot of my questions would be around schools and school funding. We had Les Guerra on last week, and he talked about how to talk to legislators and talked a lot, educated us more on school funding. And so I wondered what your thoughts are, with our economy where it is and possible economic struggles in the future. I wondered what your thoughts are on, school funding moving forward, and just in the broader picture, what our economy looks like moving forward at trying to recover from this.
Yeah, that's a great question. Our economy, is going to be really stressed out. The price of oil is very low right now. The price of oil has now gotten up to about $26.50 a barrel, which is a terrible, terrible number. Our budget doesn't balance until we hit about $43 or $44 a barrel right now, and the price is at $26.50. So we're nowhere near close a balanced budget. And our legislative financial analysts project that this next year our budget is likely to be about $100 million underwater before paying a PFD. That's a pretty striking difference. That means we're going to have about $850 million less in our budget next year than we did this year. And we have spent the last of our savings. We used to have about $16 billion in savings when the price of oil was really high in the the early 2010s. We went on a savings spree. There was a bipartisan coalition in the Senate, and they were very assertive about saving. We had about $16 billion in savings, and because of the price of oil has been low for the last 6 years, we have spent now down through that saving. We're spending the last of our constitutional budget reserve funds in FY21, which starts in July, to be able to pay for the operating budget and $1,000 PFD, which is lower than the historic average PFD. So we're getting ready to go into what I think is going to be a very historic time for our state. There's going to be a big sea change in terms of dividend levels and budget levels, and the way this affects education is it's going to affect every part of our budget in the state of Alaska. We know the governor vetoed the $30 million in education funding that was outside of the BSA, the education funding. You guys probably know there's the base student allocation, and then there is additional funding outside of that. The $30 million outside the BSA was not an increase in funding. That was flat funding. That was keeping it the same as last year. Last year, we had $30 million outside the base student allocation as well. And so that wouldn't have been an increase. That would have just been flat funding. So the governor essentially cut $30 million from the budget through vetoes. And we now know, after last year's vetoes, that we have the highest veto override threshold in the entire country, requiring 75% of the legislature to agree to override a veto. And we weren't able to meet that threshold. It's very difficult to meet that threshold. So we're not likely to meet that threshold this year as well. And we're going to need to, I think, if you think that education funding is important and that we need to protect that moving forward, we're going to need to advocate very, very strongly for that, and talk about the long-term implications of cuts to education. And we know that flat funding education year after year is essentially a cut because our fixed costs increase every year. That's just the way that doing business does. But it does also, I think, mean that we're going to have to look at ways of innovating in the way that we deliver education. And I know that STrEAM Academy has been at the front end of innovating in education. I think that's really cool. There are a lot of great ways that we can do that, and we're going to have to think creatively about ways that we can do things. And we're going to have to think that you mentioned earlier that I've worked on healthcare reform. I really believe that we're spending a lot of money on healthcare that we're not getting back in value for healthcare right now in the state of Alaska. Alaska has the highest healthcare costs in the entire country, and the United States has the highest healthcare costs in the world. And as we now know, particularly in light of COVID-19, we're not getting the best outcomes. In fact, we have some of the worst outcomes in the developed world for healthcare. So we need to start thinking about ways of delivering healthcare differently and getting more value for it. A couple of things that I worked on included like increasing access to telehealth. This year, we passed my bill HB 29, which increased access to telehealth. People used to think telehealth meant doc in a box, cheap, not good. Well, now we know that you can talk to your own healthcare provider. You can get access to telehealth. It saves money on travel and increases access to care. We're going to need to think about kind of big innovations in the way that we deliver healthcare that could help to reduce the spend on healthcare, so we can make sure that our education dollars are going in the classroom and not to paying insurance companies, right? Yeah. Insurance serves a purpose, but we have all these levels of profit takers in our healthcare system that are sucking money out of the classroom, and we need to figure out how to get more money into the classroom. So I would encourage you as education leaders to think about ways that we can innovate in the way that we deliver education and get more value for our education dollars. And I'm certainly open to any suggestions you might have.
Definitely. It's ironic that, the crisis we're in is, also could present some of the solutions. that we look at things we're doing now. I mean, you mentioned, telemed and healthcare, and that people who may have never considered that option in the past now may not have a choice. And so as a result, maybe people are becoming more comfortable with it. We're using Zoom and online platforms to continue to provide education to our kids. So
Yeah.
I think the solutions might be found in the things that we sort of have been forced to do by this crisis. So it'll be interesting to see where we go. And I promise you, STrEAM Academy will continue to innovate and lead the way like we do. And my hope is that in the fall or sometime shortly after, in the near future, we'll be back with kids and teachers in our building. And when that time comes, I really hope that we can get you to come in and see the school and say hi to us in person.
Oh, I would love to. I also will make an offer. So this is a book, Grace for President. This is the second in a series of the Grace books. This is Grace Goes to Washington. Grace Goes to Washington is the second in the series. The first one is Grace for President. And it's a book about a girl who discovers in her elementary school classroom, social studies class, that there's never been a female president and decides to run for president. That's the first one. And then the second one is Grace Goes to Washington. And it's really like how government works and things like that. And I've been doing virtual readings online to classrooms. I just read to Russian Jack Elementary yesterday morning. I read to Nanaca Valley recently. I'm happy to do that for your class, and I'll also come and read in person and donate
Awesome.
the book to your classroom. It's not a book. It's not about partisanship. It's just about getting people to visualize themselves as leaders, and for children to understand that every president started somewhere, and it starts by visualizing yourself in that role. And so I'm happy to come read or do it via Zoom if that's something that would be of interest to you.
Yes, that's awesome. I'll pass that on to our teachers, and we will follow up with you on that. Thank you so much. Well, we should probably let Mrs. Spohnholz wrap up. Does anyone besides me have questions? I hogged the time a little bit there, and I'm sorry. Anyone else want to ask a question before we move on? Okay. Once again, I just want to thank you so much for your hard work and representing us in Juneau. Thank you for all the amazing things that you're doing to try to keep Alaskans going through this crisis, and the work on unemployment and helping us all get back to work and get things back to normal. We really appreciate it. We appreciate your time, and hope we can have you on again. Thank you so much.
Happy. Thank you very much. And thank you for being educators and having such a strong commitment to East Anchorage. East Anchorage is a really special place with a lot of special families and children. And I think that it makes me really happy to see something really special happening in East Anchorage. It gives me just a really great sense of pride. And I'm also very appreciative of the work that you do to educate our kids. It's amazing work. I have so much respect for it. Being able to channel that energy that children have and nurture their natural inclination to learn it's a very, very special skill. It's a gift that I don't have, and I have so much appreciation and respect for it. And just want to give you all some respect for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, everybody.
All right. That was really awesome. That's really, really appreciated. Wow, that was a good first half of the show so far, and we're rolling well into our morning. It's 8:33 here on Morning Coffee, and we had Ivy Spohnholz, representative of East Anchorage in our legislature, and learned a lot of things. That was really cool. Our next special guest that we've got on today is also with us on Zoom, and Professor Gabel works at UAA, is professor at UAA, and we have a special connection with her at STrEAM Academy, and she has been willing to volunteer in classes and come in and share and do some really cool lessons with our PE classes at kind of some whole group things. And she's continued that on Zoom. She's been able to join Mr. Mosen's Zoom sessions to keep kids moving and active, and lead what she does through Zoom, which is pretty cool. So we wanted to give Professor Gabel a chance to come on today and talk about the things she teaches, what she does, and about health and fitness and movement, and thank her for being such an awesome volunteer at STrEaM Academy. So welcome, Professor Gabel. Good morning.
Good morning. Hello, everyone. Nice to be here. It has been quite a challenge, hasn't it, these past almost 2 months now? Yeah. So I've taught at University of Alaska for 30 years. I've been doing fitness for close to 40. I was calculating it out this morning. And I do all sorts of fitness classes and lecture classes at the university. I teach something called Fitness for Life, which I get students of all ages come in. We have quite a demographic at the University of Alaska. And Fitness for Life just teaches people tools for staying healthy and well all through life. And one of the things I stress in that class is the choices we make today will affect us down the road. So whoever you are now and whatever type of older person you want to be is in mainly your hands of choices you make and all. I also teach a personal trainer course at UAA. I do the lecture part, which is teaching people exercise physiology and kinesiology and that part of the certification. And then all sorts of activities classes, and some of them I've done at STrEaM Academy, Pound, which is an aerobic drumming class. And I'm a certified kickboxing instructor, so I teach kickboxing and weight training. I'm a personal trainer, and I'm also a certified health and wellness coach. So I give people advice on staying healthy and that sort of thing. So those are the things that I do, and I enjoy doing it. I know for this semester, we cut having online classes, not only for you guys, but at the university as well. So I continued teaching something called Topics in Fitness. It was an online class so that could help students finish their courses for this semester. And that went really well, but the challenge there with the message boards that we had and all was many people were talking about the stress levels of having to deal with the COVID and the restrictions. So many of the common things were just getting more activity, how they could do that, having trouble sleeping, eating habits had changed, just many things affected the students. And that's going to continue to be a challenge, I think, even though we're opening up many of the businesses on a slow roll here. It still is causing a lot of stress for people. And some people don't stop to think that not only is health and wellness, exercise and eating right, it is also about controlling and managing your stress and your stress levels. That's also an important part of fitness. So once stress takes a hold of you, that can have some detrimental effects to your overall well-being. So stress, health and wellness is physical and mental as well. So stress and activity levels go hand in hand to keeping you a healthy and well person. So anyways, I think that will be the biggest challenge. What we have to do in terms of our own selves right now is look at what we have, tools we have, what can we do to manage our health right now with our families and ourselves, and getting more activity. If you are housebound and you have no place to go, limited equipment, there's still things you can do. I go out with my husband every morning for a couple-mile walk with the dogs, and that's a great stress reliever right there. And just connecting with nature, and also trying not to overeat, which is a big habit for a lot of people. If you've got snacks around, there's nothing to do, there we go, we're going to eat those snacks. There are plenty of self-help books out there that can be helpful for some people. I was going to cite Mindless Eating, which has been, maybe some of you have heard of this book, Mindless Eating, with Dr. Brian Wozniak. Yeah, it's been discounted because of some of his studies have been proven they weren't really valid studies. But the overall message of the book was if we have food around and it's sitting out, we're going to just snack on it. So that tends to be what people will do with boredom. So we have to look at what is boredom, what are we doing for ourselves? Are we just giving in to nothing to do and the boredom. So anyways, I'm going off topic here. So with yeah, I am distracted by a cat actually. It's like, I think my coffee cup is empty. I don't think he's going to knock it over. Yeah. In the fall, I know many people are thinking ahead to what we're going to do in the fall. I myself am in a holding pattern. I don't know if we'll be teaching online classes. I know that there was a what university was it in California that they've already officially stated they're not going to have classes in the fall. So how is that going to affect us here in Alaska?
Yeah.
We'll wait and see, I guess, the same for me. So I think the best thing we can do, whether you have small kids or just a family with adults in it, is how can we best tend to ourselves so that this doesn't have long-term effects on us? Because like I said, what we're doing now is going to translate into the future and could cause problems, whether short-term or long-term, just in our mental wellness and our physical wellness. Every day that we sit and not do anything to address our wellness inside and out, that just adds up over time. And you start to see things affected. Like I'm not sure if anyone here is having sleeping issues, but I hear that a lot with my students. Yeah, there's a hand up. Yeah, me too. I think since this all started, I haven't slept a night through. I wake up quite a bit. And we have that, busy mind. So trying to find an outlet for that busy mind syndrome where you wake up and you overthink. And then eating, people are not feeling like cooking. This is a good time now to maybe experiment with your children, with maybe cooking simple recipes and such. I was talking with my husband the other day. If this happened 50 years ago, would be a different world. We don't have the technology and anything to keep us as occupied as we do now. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Netflix binging for weeks on end may not be the healthiest thing to do. Yeah. So anyways, any questions for me? Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I really appreciate the tips and the simple reminders about staying well that you've talked about. You talked about, even just getting out for a walk, once a day, and how good that is for us to keep us healthy and keep us balanced, to be conscious of your eating, to really be aware if you're snacking and grazing, or, keep that consciousness. I think just being at home where we keep our food, where we have our food, definitely presents so much more opportunity to go look in the fridge and to graze. So I appreciate those tips. Are there any other just simple tips, ideas that you'd share with our staff and our parents about staying well in a time where we're pretty isolated and we're at home a lot?
I would say make a plan every day of where you're going to fit in some activity that creates that happy feeling, those endorphins, gets you moving. It can be something really simple. It can be one time a day. I'd say space it out through the day, because there's nothing worse than doing for something for 20 minutes and then the rest of the day there you are sitting and doing nothing. So you can pick times where you like, let's do this activity. If you've got 4 in your family, you could have each person pick something that they would want to do. It could be a family game. It could go out in the yard, throw frisbee if you've got access to a yard, even in the house. I was telling my students last semester that they talk about watching, TV, and if it's commercial TV or sometime during the movie, you pause it and you walk in place for 10 minutes. And over the course of the whole movie, it was like there was 2 miles of walking just by pausing every 15, 20 minutes to walk even a couple minutes, just little things like that. Every little bit of movement and activity just contributes to that bank of activity for the day. It doesn't have to all be an hour long worth of activity. And then also planning what you're going to eat for the day instead of just random, what will I eat? I'm going to go in the cupboard and grab this. But just kind of make a plan of what you want to eat so that you're contributing more to your health than your junk food cravings. That's very helpful.
Those are good tips. I know there are a couple of things that have really helped me. I have a Fitbit now, and it reminds me to take, I set the minimum steps at 250 steps an hour, which is not a lot. But if I haven't moved, if I've been sitting like this, it'll buzz and it'll remind me to go take those steps and get your 250 steps. So some, I think little reminders, little prompts to move, to walk around are good. I agree. I like your idea about spacing out your movement and activity through the day. And so not doing it all in one shot. So good ideas. Mr. Mosen has joined us, and Mr. Mosen's done a lot of work to get Professor Gabel engaged in STrEAM Academy and involve her in our program. Howard, do you want to talk about how the cool things that you've had Professor Gabel come in and do and with the class?
Well, Laura Gabel, thanks so much for being here. Yeah, you've given a lot of your time and energy to STrEAM Academy, which has been a real blessing. So Ms. Gabel gave a talk on nutrition last year and then moved into movement with music. And I think that's super appropriate for middle school. The kids, when they hear the music, will move, and when they watch each other and watch you, it's a great way to teach. It's real different from a lecture, because they're mirroring you, and it's just been a super high involvement activity where I had 95% of the kids, 98% of the kids doing it. So I think it's appropriate for this age, and I know it works for for the university kids as well. So yeah, just thanks for showing up and volunteering your time and energy. I don't think the kids could ever get too much of it. And yeah, that's it. We just got to keep pushing it every day, multiple times, like we just talked about. Got to move and
make it fun. Kids
and make it fun.
Make it fun. Yeah, adults and kids alike. If it feels like it's work and it's required and I have to do it, people are reluctant for that and not as enthusiastic. If it's something fun and we want to do it, there's a mindset change that needs to happen from I have to do it to I want to do this for myself. So
and you model that really well. It comes across in your smile and your energy. So
thank you.
That's what we, I hope I can do the same when I'm working with students, and that's, I think they just really respond to people that believe in it like you do.
They were a fun group of kids.
Yeah.
I enjoyed myself.
Well, that was awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing about what you do at the university. And I hope people are inspired to look into some of those classes and some of our adult learners, to check that out. And I really hope that we can continue to keep you involved with what we're doing at STrEAM Academy, and to keep you coming in and joining our classes and doing different things with us, because it's sure a lot of fun to see the drum line, the what is it called? Pound?
It's called Pound.
Pound, yeah.
Yeah, drumsticks.
If you haven't seen a Pound session, you've got to check that out. It's pretty cool to getting all the kids moving and rapping on things. It's pretty fun.
Oh yeah, it's one of my favorite formats to teach. Absolutely.
You're very brave to give 30 middle schoolers sticks, in one room.
I contemplated that. Yes, I did.
And even before Corona, Laura has everybody wipe off the sticks, with maybe you already talked about that.
Our counselor, Ms. Spohnholz, has a question. Go ahead, Amy.
Hi, Ms. Gabel. Thank you so much for coming on. I wanted to know, do you have any of those Pound videos on YouTube that I could access?
You can look for them, and if they're there, they may not be the actual, I don't have them myself, but you can find probably different formats. They'll be the same thing, but they'll call them something else because the Pound is a trademark. So they don't try to put the actual videos of Pound Fit on YouTube. If they're there, they get taken down. But you will see clubs put them up, and they may call them aerobic drumming. So you'll be able to find that. So
Okay.
look for aerobic drumming or look up pound. I've done that myself, and different ones will come up. And you may even find actual pound up there temporarily.
Excellent. I'll put that on my website under stress reliever
Oh.
tips or things to do. So thank you.
Uh-huh.
Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Spohnholz. That's a good plug, good reminder that our counselor has an awesome website full of really good resources that you can access through the STrEAM website. Megan Gatlin.
Yeah, I just want to say I got to do a Zoom pound a couple weeks ago, and it was awesome. It was really, really, really fun. I didn't have sticks, but I used markers,
Yep.
which was kind of silly, but I was very sore the next day and just really excited that that was something that we could offer our students. So just wanted to thank
Oh,
you and tell you how much
awesome.
I enjoyed it.
You're welcome. I'm glad to hear somebody got sore.
All the squatting, I think.
Yeah, it was the squatting, I'm sure.
It's funny, no matter what shape we think we're in, doing different activities and activating different muscles, it always amazes me what will make me sore. It's kind of fun. It's like discovering a whole new world of fitness, really. Like, I thought, I've been running and I've been doing these workouts, and then I did this different thing and I'm really sore. It's neat. Ms. Bionich, did you have a question or a comment?
I was able to participate in it as well. And it was, so the only thing I had were these two chair legs that, so here I am with two chair legs trying to pound. It was unbelievably exhausting. And I'm not the most fit person, but I had so much fun that it felt like I was playing rather than working out. And then when I tried to get off the floor, holy buckets. So it was great. So thank you so much for doing that for us.
I'm glad you got to participate.
One of our parents has a question in the chat. Professor Gabel, will you be a guest again with Mr. Mosen before the end of the school year? With the time we have left, do you have any plans to come back on?
Is there one more Wednesday? Yeah, there's one more Wednesday and then you're done.
There is another Wednesday. I have Fitness Friday tomorrow, and then me and myself and some colleagues are gonna brainstorm our finale PE activity. We're not sure what it is, but we'd love to include you in it.
Yeah, if you have space and room, if you'd like me to, I can manage something. Yes.
Okay, let's talk. I'll email you after this.
Okay.
And we'll put all that out there. Mr. Mosen's good about sharing with Mrs. Bionich and I what the plan is, and advertising, the Fitness Friday and the Wednesday sessions. So we will put some info out to people and let you know what they've got planned, what they've got cooking up. Well, awesome. Are there any other questions for Professor Gabel? Anything else? Any other comments before we start to wrap things up for today?
I just want to say that I think sports is, we know how important it is, but I'm noticing how important it is now, especially. And I just want the STrEAM community to know that I'm committed to, creating some sports, however it's going to be. And I'm looking forward to input from parents and colleagues on how that's going to go. So just keep your energy up for more movement, more sports.
Awesome. Thank you, Howard. I just put my screen back up here. So today, thank you once again. Thank you so much, Professor Gabel, for coming on.
You're welcome.
And sharing with us today. Keep moving, stay healthy out there. That's some really good tips, and that's very useful right now. So we had some awesome guests on today. We had Professor Gabel join us, and earlier on in the show, we had State Representative Ivy Spohnholz, who's working really hard to represent Anchorage, and specifically East Anchorage in Juneau. And so we got 2 weeks in a row, we got some legislative funding and legislative education at STrEAM Academy, which is pretty cool. That's always a topic that fascinates me. And the takeaway from having Les Guerra and Ivy Spohnholz come on, I hope for folks is our legislators in Alaska are accessible. And if we were in California, it would be nearly impossible to directly reach a legislator. It's just, that's how it is. But in Alaska, there are neighbors, there are friends, they're very accessible. I've always found the legislature to be really accessible, and it's important that we talk to them, that we build those connections with them. We've had Forrest Dunbar, who's running for mayor, who's on the assembly. I've had him on the show. He's a friend of STrEAM Academy. And I think it's really important that we reach out and build those relationships and build those connections with our elected representation, share our stories, share the good things, that are happening at our schools and in our communities, and let them know what our priorities are. Share positive. You get a chance, just share something good with them. I think it goes a long way. So yeah, it was awesome. It was an awesome morning coffee today. I wanted to talk a little bit about next week. We started talking about it earlier. We have a packed agenda on Tuesday. We've got Ms. Gatlin and Dr. STrEaM talking about project-based learning, and we're doing some really cool work around PBL right now that I'm really, really excited about. And we've got two principals of two charter programs, homeschool programs, to tell you about those programs. And then we won't have morning coffee on Thursday because it's the last day of school, and we're going to do a virtual assembly with all of our students. And so my focus will be on that. But we will have morning coffee on Friday instead, Friday the 22nd. We will do that's the last work day for teachers. So it'll be a chance to launch our teachers and say goodbye and thank them for their hard work. I've invited them all to come on, and hopefully they'll join us so we can say goodbye and appreciate them. So I really encourage parents and STrEAM community to do that. Come on, jump on Friday, even if it's just for a minute, because it's a chance to say thank you and send off our teachers for the summer. And sort of in line with that, to help launch our teachers and share an inspiring message with them, I've got a guest speaker who is a nationally known speaker and presenter. And her name is Allison Holzer, and this is her book, Dare to Inspire. So I encourage you to pick it up and start reading it before next Friday, because Ms. Bionich and I are reading our copies already. And she's going to, provide inspiration and talk about inspiration for our staff, with everything that we're going through right now, and just moving forward as educators and keeping the ball rolling. So definitely join us next week. Join us on Tuesday. Join us Friday for Allison Holzer. How I got Ms. Holzer to come on is she posted on her Twitter feed a while back, today would have been the day of my TED Talk. She was scheduled to give a TED Talk, and of course it's canceled because of COVID-19. And so I sent her a message, not thinking it would go anywhere, and said, hey, I'm really sorry about your TED Talk. I would have loved to have watched that, but you can come on Morning Coffee at STrEAM Academy instead if you want. And she responded, was like, yes, I'd love to. So there's another little lesson there with bringing Dr. Zink on, with having this great author come on. Like, you never know until you try, right? You never know what's going to happen if you don't reach out, if you don't ask, if you don't try. And obviously that you can be pleasantly surprised by results. So join us next week on Morning Coffee for those things. That is our show today. Sylvia loves it when I call it a show, since we've turned it into a little morning show. That's our show for today, folks. I'm gonna stop the live feed on YouTube here in a second and sign off. We'll see everyone. Hopefully we'll see you all back here with a cup of coffee in your hand on Tuesday and Friday next week.